Hello, welcome to Dental TV. My name is John Toomey, and our guest today is Owen Nieberg, who's the Chief Operating Officer of All About Braces and Colorado Orthodontics in Denver. And Owen is going to talk to us today about market positioning in the world of dentistry. How are you doing, Owen?
Good, John. Thank you so much.
I guess you can just go ahead and tell us about it because you have your presentation already prepared, right?
Well, I think I have an idea of what might be interesting to talk about this evening. Let me start by giving a little bit of background about myself, only because I think it adds some color to what I'll be talking about. As John noted, I live in Denver, Colorado, run actually two separate orthodontic companies. One is called All About Braces, one is called Colorado Orthodontics. So combined, we're a 6-location orthodontic business here in Denver. But I came out here from an unusual background. I had spent the vast majority of my career having nothing to do with dentistry or orthodontics. Rather, I was a management consultant. I had worked for companies like Booz Allen and Hamilton and Accenture. And then for the last 11 years before coming here to Colorado, had my own management consulting business. And like I used to say to my kids, what that meant was I helped very big companies solve really hard problems. It's the easiest way to explain it. So typically I would deal with Fortune 100 companies that were 10, 50, $100 billion corporations. I would work at senior management levels, CEOs, COOs, and help develop often global strategic plans for them or ideas for mergers or acquisitions or whatever the case may be. If you wonder how does that lead somebody into our industry of dentistry and orthodontics, my sister, well, first I grew up in an orthodontic family. My father was an orthodontist for many, many years and then a professor. And my sister followed in his footsteps and had grown quite a successful orthodontic business in the Denver area. And had called me and said, I can improve your lifestyle greatly. How'd you like to come out here and run my business? And so for the last about 7 to 8 years now, I've been here in Denver in our industry. And obviously through that time, I've become quite familiar with the orthodontic and dental industry. So John, that was a little bit of where I'm coming from, because of what I think and what I'm going to talk about today has a lot to do with some of that more business corporate background and what we would often talk to about our clients that I think is, while it will be incredibly intuitive for many of you watching, still insightful in that as I look around our industry and I look at whether it be our competitors or our referral sources and friends, often is a very common thing in business that is overlooked in our industry and can either lead to great success for those who get it or tremendous failure for those who don't in our industry. So John, if you're ready, I'm going to talk about a little bit of, as I said, market positioning in our industry.
And when you say our industry, you mean both orthodontics and just dentistry in general, right?
Orthodontics, dentistry, it could be periodontics, and truth be told, what I'll talk about relates to just about any industry, and I'm going to use some common examples that I think we'll all be familiar with so that we can kind of relate to how this applies to all industries. So with that, let me get into the topic, and that being of market positioning. What I find is, as I talk to many dentists, and as I said, even people outside our industry, but we're going to focus on dentists, obviously, a lot of folks like to believe that they are the solution for all people, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're of one ethnic background or another ethnic background, whether you are looking for certain kind of braces or a different kind of braces. You'd say, well, my kind of braces are the right kind of braces, or my kind of dentistry is the right kind of dentistry. And most dentists think that pretty much everybody in the population should be coming to them. Because of that, what they're doing is they're trying to reach out to the whole world. And their marketing and branding efforts seem to have no specific direction or are so bland and generic as to potentially appeal to no one because they look like everybody else's ads. We provide great quality dentistry. We use state-of-the-art technology. We have a super friendly environment. And yeah, that's what a lot of you I know will say in your marketing, and yet it's what, again, a lot of you say in your marketing, and it's nondescript and doesn't differentiate you in the marketplace. And because of that, there's issues of succeeding or failing because you're like everybody else. and you're commoditizing essentially your products and services. It's not what you want. Now, when I worked as a consultant, we often would look across many, many dimensions to our clients as to who you are and who you serve. I've touched upon some already. You may say, for instance, look, I'm going to hone in on a certain ethnic group in our community. So I am going to be the dentist for the Korean community, right? And specifically within the Korean community, I want those Korean families that are recent immigrants and may be getting Medicaid, right? And so you might be looking along that dimension, right? You may be looking along another dimension of the level of technology that you use and saying, you know, I want people that want to use this really, really cool technology, right? However, for tonight, I'm going to make this a little simpler and talk about at least one set of dimensions that are often used. And for a moment, I'm going to share my screen and talk about market positioning as far as along the dimensions of perceived quality and price. And as I noted, I'm going to use some very common examples that you'll all be familiar with. So all of the companies on the screen are reasonably successful companies in what they're doing, but partly because they know their position in the market and they market and brand themselves as such. So as we look down here, right, we all know Walmart, Motel 6 are both very profitable, successful companies, right? I could have put back in the day when Frontier or Southwest Airlines were the only low-cost airlines, I could have had them in that area, right? And what
we still have Southwest. You can still put Southwest there, right?
Sure. Well, it's just more and more, you know, the trying to be low cost is something that everybody's in that space. But years ago, John, it really was, you know, there were niche players. Now, of course, you can fly, you know, United Economy, you know, super cheap economy or whatever with no frills.
Right. Value Jet, Easy Jet.
But if we go back, you know, 20 years, yeah, Southwest really carved out quite a niche for themselves because they tried to be different and succeeded, right? Hey, we're not going to give you a meal on the plane. We're not going to give you all these lovely things on the plane, but you're just looking for a form of cheap transportation. So that's what we are, right? And, you know, again, Walmart, nobody goes to Walmart to get the finest high quality or most fashionable clothing in the world, right? Nobody sleeps at Motel 6 because they really want to, you know, impress their girlfriend because they're going to propose that weekend or something on the trip, right? They purposely say, look, we make no bones about the fact that we aren't great quality, but you're not looking for that. You're looking for a great price, right? The flip side, Nordstrom's, Four Seasons, both very successful businesses. They make no bones about the fact that they are darn expensive. You're not finding a, hey, special, stay at the Four Seasons for $59 tonight, right? Nor are you, you know, even a Nordstrom sale will put a Robert Graham shirt on sale for, you know, the low, low price of $198 down from $298, you know, once a year for a great sale. But it's not anything that anybody would think is inexpensive. And yet they're successful because, again, they know their market. And that's going to be the key theme of what I'm talking about. Know your market. Know who you're presenting to, and then focus all your energies on that, right? So are there people outside of the continuum of a straight line, as you see I drew on the diagram, between quality and price? Yes, there are, and you can model your business to say, I am not just straight on that continuum. Great example, and maybe less so than Embassy Suites. I tried to think of a good hotel example, but a great one, and I know I'm a big customer of theirs, is Nordstrom Rack, where I'm getting Nordstrom product, albeit, by the way, the hottest trends in fashion, if you will, at least as a male shopper, I like to dress well. Those hottest trends, those shirts have been already sold at Nordstrom's. So you're not necessarily getting the hottest trends, but you will still get some of the finest designers and some of their really super high quality shirts at an aggressive price because it's the Rack. Now, your shopping experience is not as comfortable as Nordstrom. You will not get as much support. The store does not look as nice. It's more just like a big warehouse that you're just supposed to find what you want, and something has to give. And the Rack, of course, you know, knows that, and almost, I think, consciously does that in the format of their stores to say, you're getting a bargain, right? I'm going to put in your mindset that this is bargain shopping, that you're getting good stuff at a better price. Okay.
Right.
So I think you guys get, hopefully as viewers, what I'm going after here and the idea of this diagram of perceived quality and price. And the key is to know what you are and who you serve. So I'll give you an example of our business at All About Braces and Colorado Orthodontics. And I'm going to, for the moment, go back, stop sharing so you can see me again. And in fact, we have been discussing how we might create two separate brands, much like a Toyota and Lexus, right? Or, you know, Acura and Infiniti kind of separation, or Nordstrom Rack, to our prime example, among our two brands, right? And we're talking about doing that potentially now. But for All About Braces, for instance, we trademarked a phrase, priceless smiles, affordable fees, right? And we often will say to patients who come in that we are, to the example I just gave, we actually say we're the Nordstrom Rack of orthodontics, right? If you want really good quality stuff, in our case, really good quality care, our docs, most of our docs are board certified. The vast majority of our staff actually has gone on through the AAO certification program for chairside assistants. So we like to believe that we really have outstanding quality orthodontics, but we have that at an aggressive price, and we in fact even accept Medicaid. So the question is, what types of things do we do to promote that? Well, we consciously, for instance, very consciously, don't have a rewards program in our business for our kids. As we know, in our industry, that's a big thing. As we go to our national conferences, we're about to go to the AAO this coming weekend. There's going to be tons of companies that market, hey, this is this great rewards program for the kids. You know, they earn tokens and then they get prizes. We actually use that against other practices by saying, yeah, but who's paying for that, right? Something has to give, and we tell the patient who pays for that. We make it a point to note that our furniture that we have in our office, we buy at a place called American Furniture Warehouse, where we'll buy our chairs for 49 bucks a chair. And we often will make sure that patients actually know that fact. Why? Again, because we want them to know that we're this value play, that we're marketing ourselves as this value play. For the All About Braces, for instance, we share our space with an eye doctor and a dentist. Obviously, for one, it leads to good referral sources, but also what we say to the patients is we're separate companies, but by sharing the space, we take 1/3 of the overhead costs as these other guys do. Again, does that help our bottom line? Of course it does. But a patient might perceive that as somehow we are cheap, we're a factory, we're low quality. And so we use that actually to our advantage rather than our disadvantage, because we know our market. And as everything we do, whether it's on the web or if it's on television ads or if it's on radio or magazine or what we say to our patients, we are constantly promoting this idea of us being the Nordstrom Rack of our business, right? And the net result is, in the last 7 years since I've been running my sister's business, we doubled in size, we doubled the number of offices. I think we've had a lot of success in our model. But not only that, when I look at other folks in our industry, and of course we know the Denver market very well, what I see is exactly what I'm noting. Those dentists, orthodontists, oral surgeons, whoever it may be, who get this idea, who get this concept of knowing a market and catering to a market, are successful. And I've seen many doctors in our space who are not successful because they've not. So for instance, we have a friend in town who literally charges twice what we do for braces. He's often around $8,000 to $10,000 when we're often in the $4,000 to $5,000 range to meet what we're trying to promote. And yet he is extraordinarily successful, right? How? Because he always, in everything he does, says, I market to the wealthy, the people who want the luxury in their experience of braces, and price is no option. So he will make sure that he pays the money to say, I'm the official orthodontist to the Denver Broncos or whatever it may be. I don't know exactly what he does, and I don't want to give anything that says exactly who this doctor is. But I admire what he does because he knows his space. And the point being, there's everything about his offices have a luxury feel to them, and he's smart about it. So that's a great idea. And conversely, we have another competitor in town. It's a bit of a chain. What they'll do is often have one certified orthodontist with many general dentists who will do the day-to-day orthodontic operations. They'll hire the people who like nobody else really wants at very low costs. They are known to be kind of bottom of the barrel quality, but they'll do braces for $3,000. And because they'll do braces for $3,000, they are successful in that model. They are the Walmart of orthodontics in our space. And so, I don't think they try to say that we are providing amazing quality. They just say, look, if you view braces as a commodity, and many folks do, come to us, we'll do it super cheap. And because of that, they succeed. So in summary, John, and I'm going to let you see if you have some questions for me, but in summary, my point being, and we can talk about the, more depth or other ideas of other dimensions you can look across and maybe other shows that we do together. The point being, know your market, know who you're serving, sit down with your team and say, who are we, right? Who is our customer? And don't allow the team to say it's everybody, or it's people who want quality or something very nondescript. Know exactly who your customer is, your market. And then from that moment on, every breath you take, every action you take as a dentist, as an orthodontist, as an oral surgeon or whatever, or for that matter, I speak to a lot of my friends in other industries. I do a bunch of networking. So I talk to a friend of mine who's an auto mechanic in this space. Whatever it is that you're serving, right, have every action then reflect that, and it will lead to success. So, John, questions you have for the audience, since I know you're kind of speaking on their behalf?
Yeah, well, you've pretty much answered most of my questions. One thing I was going to ask is if this applies to every specialty within dentistry, but you've already said that it does, and of course it makes sense.
And as you said, this comes from my world. My consulting world, I really did most of my work in media and entertainment, although I also worked with a lot of financial services clients as well. And I had dabbled over 22 years of doing consulting with manufacturing companies like HVAC manufacturers, or the company that made Craftsman tools for Sears or whatever it is. It's a pretty long career. And what I'd say is, this is one of those precepts you learn in business school. I had done my MBA at Texas, but there's lots of fine MBA programs in the country, that it's one of those kind of early precepts you learn in business school that is applied in large corporate America all the time. I just find our industry is particularly weak often in their sense of business acumen and business dynamics, more so than other industries I've worked in. Orthodontics and dentistry, my father was a prime example. Amazing, amazing orthodontist, world-renowned, in fact. If people recognize my last name of Nieberg and are in the orthodontic space and say, wait, wasn't there a Lou Nieberg? Yeah. My dad, who, by the way, for those few viewers who might know him, is celebrating his 90th birthday next month. So
congratulations.
Thank you. But, he was an amazing orthodontist. He was a horrible businessman. And, that's a blanket statement across our industry. But I think many dentists are smiling and chuckling to themselves as they watch this, because they know that often that is a knock on the dental industry. Dental schools do very little, and I hear this from people coming out of school, very little to educate a dentist as to how to run a business. And in the end, that's what most of them have to do. And many of them have very little business acumen and need people like myself. Unfortunately, as you and I were talking before we started the show, I'm not a huge fan of the vast majority of dental consultants in our industry. I find that they offer very little of real value for a lot of money to the dentists and orthodontists. Not to say all of them. I've met some that I was impressed by, but given my background, most of them I find not particularly helpful. And so yes, I think that what we talked about tonight is one of those very basic precepts that should be applied across our industry and all industries. It's just dentists are particularly weak in often thinking about business concepts.
Right. I know that some of our viewers are going to want me to ask at this point, what about DSOs? What about dental support organizations? Because these companies come in and tell dentists, you can concentrate on, your practice and we will handle all the business side for you. What do you think about those?
So, I will say that in regards to this question, I actually applaud them. And I think the reason in part that we have seen such success in the marketplace, I'm not going to make a judgment about DSOs and whether or not they are good or bad for our industry. I know that's a big contentious issue, and that's not really, as a non-doctor, not where I'm coming from. So I have heard that debate. And of course, in my father's age of an orthodontist, they would have been the great Satan, you know, of anything. In fact, in his world, it was bad form to advertise in the yellow pages because it made you look cheap, right?
Right.
But, you know, regardless of, you know, what they are doing, you know, as far as good or bad or indifferent to quality of dentistry or whatever it is, I actually applaud them from a business standpoint, because what they've done is they've added some of this corporate acumen and some of the, you know, intelligent precepts of running large-scale businesses to our industry, right? So they've played upon, for instance, the topic I talked about tonight. Most of these DSOs, you will see they have a very clear market position. Now, most of them are in that kind of Walmart model, but they don't have to be. We have yet to see, I think, a DSO that went on the Nordstrom model, but that's not to say that that won't come someday in the future, right? I think they're really just emerging. And what I do think we will see, whether dentists and orthodontists like this or not, is they will continue to grow. What I don't believe, John, is that in the end they will take over the entire industry, because I think that in any medical field, people like that relationship of their family doctor. There is always going to be a segment of the population that like stick to the mom and pop shop, right? It's why many of us, for instance, still really love the unique restaurants, even though there are millions of restaurant chains. It's why when we come to a clothing store that isn't one of the big chains, so many people get so excited. I know my wife loves a little clothing boutique near us because it's different. So there's always going to be a market for that. But if anybody thinks the DSOs are going to go away or somehow hurt our industry, one, I'd say, you know, you're fantasizing. And in fact, we will see them grow more, because if you think about what I just said, right now they're really focused in one area of a market for the most part. You may see some of them branch out a little more broadly. We were talking the other day about this with a friend, and deciding that modern dentistry is more in that middle Gap and Marriott mold now. That modern dentistry is trying, you know, to be something other than the Walmart model of a little higher quality, higher price model. And I think, again, we might see even the high end of that, you know, come from them. But I applaud them along the dimensions of what we talked about, because they are run by business people, not dentists, who know some of these elements of how to run a successful, you know, marketing campaign and branding campaign and operation.
Right. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, Owen. You're obviously a wealth of information on this topic. If people want to get in touch with you and find out more, what can they do?
Sure. So, you know, happy to talk to dentists. You know, I don't really think of, you know, being a consultant, although I've done it occasionally, and I'm happy to discuss, you know, possibilities of something like that, you know, over a couple of evenings. Really, my focus these days is helping my sister, you know, run our company. It's afforded me a much better lifestyle. But if they want to reach me, the best would be via email. My email is very simple. It's Owen, O-W-E-N, at aabraces.com, because again, our company is all about braces here in Denver. So Owen at aabraces.com, and they're welcome to reach out to me that way.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been very informative, Owen, and I hope we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, John. It was a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Good night. Bye.